So next up, we're going to check out Pyramid Peaks, the weird rebellion of Polish movie posters. I don't entirely know what stage of the last 50 years this is from, but considering some of the things on here, it could be anywhere from now to, oh God, it's old. I mean, Citizen Kane is on there and so is Hitchcock, so it could go either way. All I do know is that there was a Eastern European movement explicitly against some of the more authoritarian governments in the previous 50 years that were very artsy-fartsy. I know a bit about that. I have no idea if it's going to be relevant. And honestly, if it is, I'd probably laugh my ass off, because that's just like random bits of esoteric knowledge that have almost no impact on daily life. And if they actually came up right now, I mean, seriously, what are the chances of that? So we'll jump in and see where this goes.
All right. It's time to play Guess That Movie.
Ha!
First
I never
question.
win this one.
This is a poster for what movie? Correct. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you said Indiana Jones, you get like half a point. Question 2. This poster of a skull with a whip snake thing slithering through it is for what movie?
I'll be honest. If I was supposed to know this one, I do not know this one. And just because I see a whip, I'm assuming it's probably something a little more mature.
It's also Raiders of the Lost
What?
Ark. The Polish poster. What about this skull?
You know what? I was thinking it was an entire genre of just weird ass shit. Okay. No, it is exactly what I thought. It is weird ass shit. It is way somehow darker than I thought. Like, I thought this was full on horror. And to be fair, Raiders of the Lost Ark scared me. But damn, like, this is more evocative, but that is a thing, all right. Holy shit, man.
Poster. What about this skull with wings flying right at you? That's Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
I'm going to be honest, I kind of prefer that one. That actually is incredibly thematic. Neat.
The Polish version. Okay, what about this pink rib cage with eyeballs?
Oh, Invisible Man.
That's Polish Alien,
Oh.
obviously.
Oh, because of the stomach burster. Oh, okay. Yeah.
If you look at almost any Polish movie poster from the 50s to the 80s, they'll have this abstract imagery that's sometimes pretty morbid, and it takes a while to understand what you're even looking at. Where the original American artwork for these movies centers around the starring actors and instantly recognizable images, the Polish art is, well, just look at it.
I'm not going to lie. That's pretty awesome. Like, you know, it's a classic for the first Star Wars. But blowing up the Death Star represented by Vader's helmet, that kind of goes hard, man.
It's weird, but kind of incredible. And it makes you wonder, how did the same
I get it. It's a puppet show, but at the same time... Wait. What side of the Iron Curtain was pulling on? That might be the answer.
How did the same movies from the same era get such radically different poster styles?
I mean, admittedly, this is still a good poster now, and if I didn't know it was for Indiana Jones, I think it's just some kind of metal band.
The answer is communism. Well, kind of.
Glorified, glittering, fascinating, fabulous, mythical kingdom. Hollywood, the glamour capital of the world.
As I'm sure you're aware, Hollywood is a business. They sell you movies. So every time we tape up a vintage poster to the dorm wall or listen to a 4-hour video essay about Finding Nemo lore, we can forget that movies...
Yeah, I've done that. It wasn't the 4-hour version, but I did get a little curious.
These are products, and posters are ads. That's
Yeah?
not to say they can't also be incredible works of art. It's just that they serve a purpose outside of looking cool. And because a movie poster is meant to get you to buy a ticket, Hollywood prioritizes marketability over creativity.
I'll be completely honest. The official poster versus a good poster, I would take the good poster every single time, because the official one... Is it just me, or does it almost look like bad CGI? Like, that is unironically... It looks flat and empty. I saw Homecoming. It was fine. Not my favorite, but it was fine.
Movie posters are created by artists, but influenced by market research, studio executives, focus groups. And that means simple images, big names, and of course, the infamous floating heads. And it feels like everyone knows how bland movie posters are today, but even in the golden age of Hollywood, a good movie poster was hard to come by. We just remember the best posters.
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest. Out of all of them, like some of them are kind of iconic. I look at this and go, I know Miracle on 34th Street is supposed to be a classic, but I look at this and tell me these people do not look like they're about to eat someone. Like, just switch out the yellow for red, and this is a horror film more than the other ones. I mean, I'm being a little harsh here, but look at this. This is the... How do you taste, Clarice? It's all good here. This is fine. Him, not so much. But her, it's just that's she's staring right at her ass, the little kid's ass, like right direct eye contact. At least he's looking straight ahead to where everything's happening. Now, a little bit extra down and the teeth getting bared. It's freaky, man.
We just remember the best posters from that era because, well, they're the best.
The
Plus,
Endless
the
Summer
fact that they
Vertigo?
were
Never heard of
painted
them.
instead of Photoshop does add some charm.
Yeah.
But even in the so-called good old days, artists could still be stifled by the cold, tightly controlled Hollywood bureaucracy. But these strange, beautiful, haunting Polish posters were made under a system that was more controlled than Hollywood. A lot
And they're probably only showed to people as a, hey, see, you don't want to see this because it's horrible.
more controlled. The Polish communist government was a puppet state of Soviet Russia, controlled by none other than Joseph Stalin.
Can you imagine the Russian doing something like that? That's crazy talk.
The government censored books, radio, and films that the Soviet authorities didn't approve of. Now, this was nothing new for Poland because for them, art had already been censored for years under the previous German occupation.
Yeah.
So when the government decided to allow select American films to enter the country, Polish citizens were excited to see what Hollywood had been cooking up for the last half-decade. Thousands of Polish youth would even be watching a movie for the very first time. But first, the Polish Film Propaganda Office needed movie posters in their own language. So they reached out to an artist named Henryk Tomaszewski.
Ja rzekłem, że pod jednym warunkiem
I agreed to make the posters under one condition. They should not expect me to make posters that resemble the American posters.
Are we getting one of those odd chances where the controlling authoritarian government accidentally goes into more freedom of speech by accident? And just to throw it in a third time, accidentally even.
Drawing from his fine art backgrounds of surrealism and expressionism,
That would do it.
Tomaszewski's posters were playful, strange, and suggestive. In a medium that was expected to be a literal depiction of the movie and its actors, his work forces the viewers to look a little deeper. Together, Tomaszewski and a few colleagues began creating posters that were distinctly their own. They were working with poor printing materials, which meant they couldn't rely on photography, instead using more simple shapes that were easily reproducible at a large
And I mean, that is basically Othello.
scale.
If you know the movie or
Compared
the
to
play,
other forms
yeah.
of art in Soviet Poland, the censorship on movie posters was very relaxed. Soviet authorities
Really?
saw posters as nothing more than advertising, and odds are they never even saw the movies they were based on. Clearly. They also had no reason to push one film over another, so they weren't worried if the poster was even effective in making people actually watch the movie. And so, while the rest of Polish society was heavily restricted, poster art became a loophole.
Because it was very much something they didn't care about, they didn't pay attention to, they didn't think to censor it, and they weren't trying to promote it to get the most views, so it was one of those gray areas. A lack of care leads to extra freedom. So it's ran into the same thing as early internet design for most of the things you could get away with. Because people didn't care in the 80s and 90s nearly as much as they do now, so you could do a lot more on it.
One of the few creative spaces where artists had freedom. That's how we ended up with posters like this. They were surreal and strange. The only pops of color pasted onto the endless gray walls of rubble that made up many Polish cities that were destroyed under German occupation in World War II.
That's what that looks like
They
at the
were
time?
violent and moody, reflecting a fatalistic people who lost almost 20% of their population to the war and were freed from one oppressor just to be conquered by another. an oppressor that tightly controlled all aspects of Polish life. Where an American poster might feature a heroic cowboy and smiling actors, the Polish version would focus on the violence, an anonymous weapon pointed right at the viewer. The posters were confusing. In a time when pushing back on the government's narratives could lead to harsh consequences, any message against the system had to be complex enough that it would get past the state censors.
So even if someone decided to look, they wouldn't have the slightest idea what they're looking at, which probably meant that they are going to develop an internal language of references that makes sense to the people viewing it, so that when they see it, it's like a keystone to what they're meaning. Also known as, they're going to make memes. Yeah. We're actually going there, aren't we?
On the
It's the
surface,
DNA of the soul.
these were just surreal. You know, weird artists making weird art, like they do. But to Polish citizens walking through cities that were heavily destroyed by war and still occupied by a foreign government, they hinted at hopelessness, oppression, and unrest.
And that's the thing about memes. This is an accurate description of exactly what they are. When you have images that mean something to someone, you pass on the idea of what this meaning is by showing them the idea. And this is how. Not just the funny little clip. And Corinne, code in the code, memes, yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to pull this up. Yeah. Capsulized images.
All the things you couldn't talk about. We wanted our poster to be seen by the public, so we had to comply with their expectations in the first layer of meaning.
Multiple layers of
But
meaning.
each of us tried to smuggle in some undertones.
Stalin is dead.
Oh no, how
A new
horrible.
era begins.
When Stalin died, many of the restrictions were gradually lifted over Polish art, which meant that the Polish poster school's artists were able to create work for films and plays from their own country, often using that same subversive imagery.
Wait, this is only American posters prior to this. For some reason, I just believed it was anything that would be done and not just American ones, but I guess it would also apply to maybe British films they brought in. Odd. Like, was the control so high they weren't even allowed to make things internal? Also, Perpia mentioned memes, not the DNA of the soul, but the virus of the mind. What's the difference?
But even years after Stalin died, writers and artists were still being arrested for criticizing the government.
Yeah.
So even once the Polish film and art industry
Yeah, it'd be a real shame if that was a rarity that never happened again.
were allowed to ramp back up again, the movie poster loophole was still one of the best ways to criticize the system. And that's not to say all these posters had political messages. It's just that in communist Poland, posters became the de facto art form for any message. The street plastered with movie posters was the art gallery.
It also means that it's, oddly enough, a very common form of art that people can engage with, which is not how fine art was treated almost anywhere else, where fine art is a good way to smuggle money because the value only goes up over time because age makes it more valuable. And if you own it and you're famous, then it's actually worth more because you owned it. Yeah, that's the thing. The other aspect is who sold it and who made it. And then eventually, is it good? But who sold it, who made it, and who owned it are the three design factors of value. If people like it, it's actually not even one of the big ones, although it can be, because if enough people like it, then the who sold it becomes way more important because they had something good, and who made it, it becomes more important because they know it'll sell. You see where I'm going with this? So they're kind of subverting most of the art gallery's pricing by doing something subversive for the sake of being subversive and public because they won't make money on it anyways, but they still do it, but they're being paid to do it. It's kind of an inversion of how most art is viewed because it is inherently, well, subversive. It's kind of fascinating to see the alternate take on it.
People walking by might be able to spot a Gorka poster just by the faces made up of other shapes, or a Moldojinets poster just by recognizing all the stick figures.
Oh.
This artist, Waldemar Świerci, created over 1,500 posters, which were
Whoa.
reprinted in millions of copies pasted around Poland for decades.
I swear, they look like some of the best album covers you find. That's literally what it is. Oh, and Craig mentioned it was Europe and the US, but US had the bigger backlog. Yeah, that would do it.
Here he is talking about how the Polish poster school became so influential that college students started to switch from traditional fine arts into the only field that would allow them to push boundaries.
Oh, I wonder how much that played into the more modern styles that came after the fall. After the Berlin Wall fell, what modern styles would become more influenced by this? Because what they're drawing looks like what a lot of current modern art aspires to be. A lot of it fails and is just cash grabs by people who know that yuppies will pay anything if you give them a good story, but still.
It was very contagious to the young people, and therefore students would turn from painting to poster design. It wouldn't be long before those same students would use poster design to help overturn the very systems that were holding them back.
Oh?
Hey, do you have a wall? If you do, it's not complete without a poster that shows everyone your refined taste.
I have them. They are embarrassing.
For that, you've got to check out movieposters.com. They have pretty much everything from
Gonna
the
have to
classic
pass on that
posters
one.
we all know and love. The 50s and 60s are considered the golden age, but the Polish school of posters continued all throughout the 70s and 80s. Hollywood's original posters
I mean, Apocalypse Now looks pretty good regardless, but what would the other Polish version look like?
in this era were generally pretty good, but it's still interesting to see Polish artists haunting interpretations for blockbusters like Jaws, The Godfather, and Star Wars.
I'll be honest, not the one I thought they would go for on Star Wars.
Polish artists haunting interpretations for blockbusters like
Jaws is exactly what you think it is, and frankly, this one actually perfectly services what you're thinking about getting with the movie. It's like, oh, what's it about? Shark, blood. Oh, yeah, we're going to that movie. Oh, Atomic. I'm just going to pull up here. And Grin, that's the paradox of art. Restriction makes it better. Yeah, like some of the most influential art was based around a time period, I think in France, where if you didn't do art explicitly as they allowed, it was literally illegal. And a lot of freedom of speech and those kind of protections for expression came from people challenging it through art that now we look at it as like, it's boring. But at the time, it was heavily subversive and got people in trouble, and over time did build up a precedent in law to not be as aggressive. It's been years since I've gone into art history, though, so I don't even remember the name of the painting. I do know I knew it at one point. It bugs me. And Atomic, person who lives in growth up in communist or grown up country here, you can still feel the effects. Also, your high school history teacher tells us that when Russia takes over and Germans, her grandmother didn't notice, only that they speak in Russian. Damn, that would be the case. CP there looks dead. Depending on which one it is, it might have been when he technically was disassembled in the second movie.
Jaws, The Godfather, and Star Wars.
Can't tell which one it is. Probably the first or the second. Actually, we could probably just go back a second and see it. No, it might be the first one.
Star Wars. Want to play another round of Guess That Movie? I know you do.
80s. Oh, God, I
All
won't
right.
know any of them.
This car and squiggly lines that turn into a face when you squint your eyes.
Oh, yeah. Lips, eyes, really weird hair. Wait, Michael J. Fox. No. Back to the Future?
Is a poster for what movie? That's Back to the Future.
Yeah, car.
Okay, how about Evil Origami Yoda?
Gremlins. I don't know why, but that's what I'm going with. Oh, it says Gremlin-y. Yeah, that would do it.
Viciously attacking Santa Claus. That's the Polish poster for Gremlins.
That one makes perfect sense. Like, unironically, that just makes sense. It's a Christmas movie.
Here's one of my favorites.
Jaws?
It's a shark with two jaws. Jaws 2. That's incredible.
This one seems so on the nose. I'm surprised that isn't how Sharknado 2 was advertised. Ugh.
But while the artists were cooking up their weird masterpieces, something big was happening outside the studio. As
Oh?
the Soviet Union's grip on Eastern Europe began to slip, Poland entered a crossroads. In 1989, Poland's first semi-free elections were held between the ruling communist government and the anti-authoritarian Polish Solidarity Party, a movement led by workers and artists.
Now, this is, I do know, is this what led to the fall of the Soviet Union because of, I think it was the Workers' Party that did it, but I'm not entirely sure if it happened yet or later.
Who
I
challenged
know it was
the
leading
Soviet
a protest
regime
that did it.
To communicate their political messages, Polish artists used movie posters, the same way they had been for the last 40 years. A 22-year-old design student from the Solidarity Party named Tomasz Sarnecki created a poster that became the defining image of the election. He took a still from the 1950s Western film High Noon and traded the heroic cowboy's gun for a voting ballot. The Solidarity Party made it an official campaign poster and plastered it across the country on every wall, every lamppost, and every train station. This time,
And it's everyone who would vote, who would know what to look for, would know exactly what they're at, and being aware of the context because they're already on the inside of the crowd, who would get the meme of this means this. Okay. Yeah.
the message didn't have to be subtle. Vote against the current government. High
Also is blatant, but it also, how to put it, when you're doing niche micro advertising now, it's heavily done through a lot of people looking at, these are the people at this time, at this period with these keywords, they'll get your interest. But here they're technically doing niche micro advertising because the people who would look at posters are the people who are already going to understand that your ideas and their ideas are probably going to be similar. So essentially they're doing micro targeting correctly because the people in this crowd, the people who would look at the posters, are the people who would listen to the idea of voting about this aspect in this system. So yeah, it kind of works perfectly.
June 4th, 1989. The Solidarity Party overwhelmingly won that first election.
And purple, you mean subtle by being overt? Oddly enough, yeah. But anyone can see it, and someone might see it. But the people who know exactly the meaning, it's the people who would be on the inside of what the posters are, what is subversive, and what is it going to mean to understand this. Or backwards? I say more subtle by being overt. Because sometimes the easiest way to hide something is being completely upfront about it. As dumb as that might sound, yeah. For example, if you hide, I was going to make a reference to the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but yeah, screw it, I'm going to do it anyways. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. At the end of the movie, they get the Ark. It was hidden in a very hard to find place with very few clues, and it was a very big adventure to find it. But they found it. And at the end, they hid it away again in a warehouse, in a box, filled with other identical boxes without any markings. You're never going to find that shit because no one's going to know where that is because it's hidden by obscurity through being obvious and blatant and normal. Things that aren't hidden are the hardest to find. Yeah. It's like finding a needle in a needle stack. You're not going to find shit in that, man.
For the communist government, winning 99 out of 100 Senate seats and paving the way for Poland's transition into a democracy.
According to one of the party's leaders, Bronisław Geremek, the poster helped unify the Solidarity Party. It helped us win. For the people of Poland, high noon comes today. After 40 years, it was fitting that a poster would help put an end to government censorship in Poland. However, with the restrictions from communism gone, in came influences from capitalism.
In Poland, movie posters were ads once again, and surreal, thought-provoking designs don't actually sell movie tickets. So while artists were finally free to create whatever they wanted outside of the film industry,
The people paying them and not understanding that it was subversive are no longer paying them because now they want something that gets money. Yeah. Or another option Purple Master again was finding the right knife in a drawer. Yeah. That would do it.
within the film industry, they had no choice but to follow the same commercial interests that Hollywood did. In came the big names, the simple themes, the standardized branding, and of course, the floating heads.
Yeah.
And if you walk past a Polish movie theater today, you'll find that the only difference between the American and the Polish posters is the Polish.
Kind of embarrassing.
Here's poster artist Victor Gorka speaking in 2003.
Now we have total freedom, and what do you see in the streets? We see very poor quality posters. Of course, it's better that people are free to make what they want, but isn't it just a little sad that we'll never see a movement like this again?
I wouldn't say that because in many ways it has changed, and memes which is what these were. They were contextualized bits of information of how to understand something, hidden by layers of interpretation that people would understand and then pass on to other people. It still exists. It's just now you communicate by jokes, by the internet, by experiences you share online. The in-joke. Hell, as dumb as it is, there's like the dumb joke of 69, 67, or 67, whatever it is. All of that dumb shit, it does get across an idea. Now, I personally think the 6-7 is just the idea of it's humorous because it means nothing is in itself just nihilistic, but that's just because I think it's stupid. I don't know if that's what the people saying it go for or not. Also, that would involve being cool, and I have never been that, and I never will be that. But it's just moved. You find a lot more of this online. Look at the images that are funny that people share. Look at the type of humor. When you see something dark, what makes it dark humor? Is it usually pointing out this is a horrible thing that we're all going through, so let's laugh at it? Stupid memes are just that, stupid. Why is it stupid? And why is it funny that it has to be stupid? And Bill, it's humorous because it annoys people. Yeah, but why is annoying people funny? And as dumb as that entire concept sounds, this is actually getting into a bit of psychology that you can actually tell people or learn about them based on what they find funny. For example, dead baby memes. That's stupid. The joke isn't funny. It's funny when nothing horrible is going on, but you feel like something is about to happen and it's bad. You find dark humor in places that are dealing with a lot of dumb shit. If you're in a great place and you don't want to deal with this, it's not funny. But if you're under stress and nothing's gone bad yet, but you feel like it's just one step away from happening, horrible dark humor is like, oh yeah, that's hilarious, man. It's that. That's why dark humor is a thing. It's why memes about humor carry weight. It's why memes in general, all these images that have meanings, but you don't quite get it because they're dark and they're showing what is going on. It's that essential thing. It's just being carried over into a different format. Images, words, concepts, memes, in this case, posters, it all ties together to show this is the bullshit we're dealing with. It's just a different bullshit and what the type of bullshit is. And Casper, baby shoes, for sale, never worn. The 6-word short story from, why do I always want to say Whitman when I think of a random author? I know it's not. The guy who wrote Not One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. God damn, I've read his novels. The Sun Also Rises. Hemingway. Yeah. He said he could write a terrible short story, and it's a depressing one. Sorry, the concept of ideas spread is such an integral part to literature that this is something, even though it's about posters, it's about visual art, the overlap is very intentional. Or, well, not so much intentional. I actually don't think it's intentional at all. I think it just happens to work out perfectly.
But the legacy of the Polish school of posters is still going strong. Posters from this era have become collector's items worth thousands, and they're studied in design schools across the globe. They continue to inspire modern designers, illustrators, filmmakers, and any...
Yep, I knew there would be an inspiration part there because it does seem like a lot of the best modern art that is currently modern, not the stylistic period of modern art, but things that are now, when it's done well, it does have that look to it.
Anyone out there who wants to create something. Through what was basically a loophole in Soviet censorship, the movie poster became something beyond a simple ad. It became fine art, an expression of struggle, and a weapon of change. And yeah, it looked really weird while doing it.
Looks weird now. It's so cool.
If you found this topic interesting, I recommend checking out a few of the sources I'll link in the description.
Ooh.
They go much more in depth than what I'm sure was the oversimplified American perspective I gave here. And if you subscribe, I promise I won't make any more videos that require me to horribly mispronounce like 15 Polish names.
Yeah, don't worry. If I was trying, it'd be a lot more than 15. And it wouldn't just be Polish. I got no excuse. I'm just bad at speaking. This is fascinating. And I do get this. And I love this being brought up. If anything, I wish there was a second part to this going into the detail of, and here are the influences that spread it so much further. For example, I'm just going to pull up this comment right here because this is an idea of a dark meme. 2137. It is a meme in Poland because it's when the Pope died. The big meme in Poland, time of death of John Paul II. At the time, many years, people were randomly starting to sing Barca. The meme has many layers. Yeah, but here's the thing. As an American, I did not know the time. I mean, I am Catholic, but I'm a bad Catholic in general. So I don't really know the details of this. It never really entered my, I guess, noosphere. Technically, that is both a 40K term and an actual mental concept of the area of thought around someone, but also more metaphysical. So let's not go with that. It hasn't entered the area of the people I knew and the zeitgeist. That's probably a better term for it. But now that I know about it, I know the phrasing for it. And if someone said something like, oh yeah, I get that. Why are you referencing the date, the hour of the Pope's death? And I'm going to realize this is kind of fucked up. But how is it handled? I don't know. And I don't understand the context of it. I just know that it's referencing that now. And that's how that spreads. You got a bit of information to correlate two different things. That's just weird. And Casper, osmosis? Kinda. I mean, but that's how people learn. And how we learn does kind of work on memes. And Purple, you mentioned noosphere used by SCP. Yeah, but the thing is, it actually was a much older concept that did exist well before that. So it's, as much as SCP and 40K are the ones who probably are the most well known for it, although I didn't know SCP did it, it was actually a legitimate theoretical concept that people had thrown around well before that. I think it was, I know it was over 100 years old, but I do not remember which thinker used it. I also know it was like one of those hypotheticals they brought up to give an idea of what it would look like for an all-expanding consciousness of thought that people were actually in when they were, you know? But there's just, these are the kind of concepts I love. So seeing them is kind of something that I find as me bait. Basically what I'm saying is if you guys haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.